My friends, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited about today's video because we're going to chat all about the books that I read in the month of September. I had a little bit of a lighter reading month, which has kind of been the trend this year. I just truly have had a lot going on and I have not prioritized reading, which I really need to because it is such a benefit to my mental health. So hopefully in the month of October, I have more to discuss, but we do have a good variety of books. And most of the books that I read were phenomenal, and you're going to walk away with some book recommendations for sure. If you've never been to one of my book wrap-ups before, I keep it completely spoiler-free, so I won't share any spoilers in this. I do share a little summary of what to expect from the book, my thoughts on it, and then I also give it a rating for both spice, if there's any spice in the book, because I read a lot of romance, and then I also give my star rating. I developed a little system, which I will put up on the screen, for how I determine the star and spice ratings. I also always keep it in the description box, just in case anybody was curious on what goes into it. It's pretty flexible. It's mostly just the emotions I'm walking away from with that book. So the first book that I started the month out with was Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. This one I gave a 4.5 out of 5, and for spice it was a 2 out of 5, so there is spice in this romance. So this one follows Maya and Connor, and they have quite the history together. He happens to be her brother's business partner and best friend, and they're in Italy celebrating her brother's wedding, and they have quite the past with one another, but they obviously can't avoid each other on this trip, and it brings up a lot of feelings on both sides. So this book for me was a trust the process type of book, because the first third of it, there's just a lot of jumping around. Normally when I read books, they'll have timeline jumps where a chapter goes back in time. This one, they would be mid conversation present day, and there'd be italics to flash back to a conversation that they had years ago. And that just kind of threw me for a loop. It was not my favorite experience. And at first it was a little hard to connect with the characters because both of them are super guarded, but it ends up being such a beautiful journey that they go on, because by the end of the book, you feel like you went through the emotional work that they needed to get through to bring those guards down. The other thing I loved about this was definitely the setting, having the Italian wedding, and there were a lot of scenes where they kind of explored around the area, so I absolutely loved that. They also had some really good background characters that brought in humor right when you needed it. But the thing about this romance is I am generally a swoon-worthy romance girl. I'm looking for take your breath away, knock you over with romance, punch you in the face with happiness. That was not this book. It almost had a melancholy tone to it, and it was just a really real, gritty, raw type of romance. So if you're looking for the fluff style, that's not this one. So this one's labeled Problematic Summer Romance. So I kind of went in thinking it would be a beach read type vibe. It's definitely not. My cat is here. She's saying hello. Actually, this is a good opportunity. People did not know that I have a cat. Apparently, I don't talk about her enough. This is Nala, and she is, I think, 14. And she is my bestie. I'm absolutely obsessed with her. Stella is my dog, and she's just more vocal, so she's been in a couple of the videos. Hi, Nala. Everybody wanted to see Nala, so that's a good opportunity. Hi, sweetheart. She's okay. So she might be co-piloting this episode where we discuss books. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about that? No? Okay. So basically, anyways, I went in thinking it might be a beach read. It is definitely not. I mean, you could read it on the beach. You could read it by the pool. You could read it wherever you want. But it's not that fluffy style beach read that you might be looking for. The characters are a little bit more on the raunchy side. There's a little bit of that going on. I'm the ultimate mood reader, so I'm just kind of giving extra detail just in case you're headed into a book and that's the vibe you want. It's definitely less of the feel-good style one and more on the raunchy, little bit unhinged, a little bit angsty style romance. So overall, I thought it was a great read. I personally love Ali Hazelwood. I love that she takes you through all of the emotions, sprinkles in some humor where it's needed. My favorite books from her are definitely the STEM series. I think Love on the Brain is one of them, and The Love Hypothesis. Those are two of my favorites. But I also loved Bride from her, which was a werewolf vampire book that I never thought I would like, but I ended up loving it because it almost gives mafia vibes in the romance. If you haven't read Ali Hazelwood and you're looking for some books to jump into with her, she's one of my auto-buy authors. She's one of the ones that I know if she puts it out, I'm probably gonna love it. She also has a young adult called Check and Mate, and I absolutely loved it. It was all about chess, but it was really, really fun. So anyways, I know I just rambled quite a bit. Anything from Ali Hazelwood is a recommend from me. and that includes this one. Next up was a little bit of a departure from what I normally read. In case you didn't know, I have a almost 4-year-old and almost 3-year-old twins. My twins turn 3 in December, and then their older brother is only 11 months older than them, and he turns 4 in January. We do plan to homeschool at this point. So I've been starting to dabble in some books about homeschooling, teaching, children's development, things like that, just to get myself ready and as educated as possible as I take on that journey. So one of the books that I picked up was Teaching Montessori in the Home, and this is by Elizabeth Hainstock. And this is an older book. It's been around for a very long time. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on stars, and I'll just briefly talk about it in the event that you may be considering homeschooling or even just Montessori, because Montessori doesn't just have to be if you're going to homeschool your children. The Montessori method is basically children-led playtime. So you don't have to plan to homeschool, even if you just have kids in your house. It's a method that helps raise capable children, basically. So even if they're going to be going to traditional school, it's still things that you could be doing in the household when they're not at school. I felt like this book was a very simple, straightforward breakdown of the Montessori method and some of the steps you can take. What was so funny about this book was that I actually had always wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher. So the idea of me getting to homeschool my kids is basically like a dream come true. I just never ended up going through with teaching because I was working full time when I was about to enter college. And I realized that the salary that I was making working full time was the same salary that I potentially could earn as a teacher. But I was also going to have to stack up like a lot of student loan debt in order to be able to get there. And 18-year-old Kate wasn't really thinking like vocation-wise and what your calling is and what you should do in life to pursue. I was just thinking realistically. And truly, I'm happy that that happened because I'm happy that I never incurred a lot of student loan debt. I'm happy about that. But it did obviously hold me back from doing something that I dreamed of doing, which was teaching. So what's funny is I have like the passion around setting my kids up with like the activities and the learning opportunities and worksheets and developing their speech and all of that stuff. Like that's my passion and I love doing it. My husband just doesn't have that same passion. He is in the ship repair industry. He's always been more of like a blue collar style worker. He's incredibly smart. He's so smart when it comes to like engineering and things like that for everything that has to do with ship repair. But when it comes to, like driving learning activities, that's just not his wheelhouse really. But what he has been doing is he's been doing life skills that I wouldn't have even thought of. Like he has our kids put some dishes in the dishwasher. He has our kids like switch the laundry with him. He has our kids throw away their own diaper. He has our kids like wiping down the table. Like things that I just would not have naturally thought of, he naturally thought of. And as I'm reading this book, that's one of the #1 recommendations. So I had to go give him some props because he just thought of that completely on his own. And it turns out that's one of the recommendations when it comes to Montessori. So I'm happy to know that my children were benefiting from my husband just naturally coming up with these things that I didn't even know should be happening. So back to the book. The only thing with this book is if you do pick it up, it definitely has like an angry tone to it. I felt like I was getting scolded a little bit, like as if I was stupid and I didn't know you were supposed to be doing these things, which I mean, kind of, But so there was definitely like a tone in there that's not the greatest, and it's definitely a little outdated with some of the terminology that gets used and things like that. But overall, I think if you're dipping into Montessori and you want like a straightforward guide to it, it's one that I would recommend. You guys, I'm so excited to talk about the next one. Like I literally was like, okay, I didn't read that many books in this month. Should I even film a video or should I just like combine September and October? But then I remembered I read this book and I was like, no, I need people to know about this as soon as possible. This book was so good. It's called The Tempest and Tea Leaves, and it's by Rachel Morgan. This one is a fantasy book, but it's also set in like Regency times. So it's like a historical fantasy, but it's very, very cozy. It is the perfect book for this time of year because it's set in an enchanted tea house. Come on, you guys. So this one has Iris, and she is half human, half fae. And at 19, her magic had manifested and everybody was kind of surprised. However, the magic that manifested is not that impressive, but she needs to be introduced into society because her family is struggling financially and she needs to find someone very wealthy to marry so she can save the family from financial ruin. Once her and her family return to society, she's offered a very prestigious apprenticeship at a tea house with Lady Ravenna, and everybody thinks that she's not worthy of it, but she's determined to prove that she is. The problem is, one of the people that's most opposed to it is the grandson of the person she's going to be working for. You guys, this book was so incredibly special. I loved this book. I did not want to leave the pages, but I also wanted to fly through it. There was like such a balancing act for me because I wanted to soak up every single piece of it, but I also just wanted to get to the end because I just wanted to see how it all wrapped up. I am not the biggest fantasy reader. I can only take the ones that don't require you to have like maps of the world and character lists and all of that stuff. And I think this one was perfect. It gave that magical feeling that fantasy gives you, but it didn't leave me confused at any point. It was very easy to follow, and it just had like this ethereal feel to it the entire time. I also was so impressed with the author and how there's like conflicts and challenges that come up, and I felt like they were just paced at the perfect way and they were worked through a little bit at a time that felt super realistic. And the other thing that was really different about this one is there's actually 3 point of views in this. One of them is Lady Ravenna, who is the tea house owner, and she's like the matriarch of the family. The other one is her grandson. And then the third is the apprentice. And it's mostly the grandson and the apprentice, but Lady Ravenna, when she comes in, I don't know, it just had this like sweeping feeling to it when she got to have a scene. And I felt like I was like watching a movie while reading the book because the author just makes the entire world feel so immersive. I hope that I've sold you on this book. I haven't heard anybody else talk about it. This one is a series and I'm going to move on to the second one. I just wanted to read some more like fluffy romances in between because there is like a fantasy element to it and there is some like angst and drama, so it's not like the lightest read, but overall it's a series that I know that I'm just gonna love. You know, I got through that whole thing and just realized that I didn't even give you my star rating on that. This one was a 5 out of 5 in case it wasn't clear, and 0 out of 5 on spice, so there are no spicy scenes in this one. All right, the next one that I read was called The Billionaire Love Match by Emma St. Clair. I have read quite a few books from Emma St. Clair and I really enjoy her. She does clean romances and they're very like Hallmark vibes, but not super awkward or cringy. They're like cheesy in the best way. And this one was no exception. I gave it a 4.25 out of 5 on stars and I gave it a 0 out of 5 on spice. There's no explicit scenes in this one. So in this one we have Colt, who comes from a very prestigious family and has a lot of money, and his mom has convinced him to star in a dating show in exchange for her providing him his own studio. The day that he's set to pick the cast for this, he has a crazy encounter with a woman named Casey in the bathroom, and then he finds out she's one of the potential contestants on the show. So this one was just overall entertaining is like the word that I would use for it. It's got a dating show that's happening, and I felt like the way the author wrote it, I was really watching a dating show. And I've never been one of those that's like into The Bachelor or any of that. I think I watched The Bachelor like very early on when it first started, but I haven't watched any of the recent ones, and I know people are obsessed with that Love Island. I haven't watched that. If you were into dating shows, you would probably love this book even more because I just felt like it really captured a dating show situation. What I loved about these characters is that they're kind of unexpected because both of them have a little bit of a reputation that's based off assumption and not rooted in truth, but then they start to really like reveal that they're much more wholesome than you expect them to be. And I just thought it was cool how they really have an unexpected turn in their personalities throughout this book. The love connection was really cute too. I felt like it was strong the entire time, but they were working against things that made sense. So it wasn't like the conflict was just there to be there, if you know what I mean, because sometimes I'll read a book and I'll just be like, just get over it already. You know, like that's not even that big of a deal. But in this one, it made sense what was happening. There's like a little bit of like a villain aspect happening. So that brought an extra layer of drama, if you will, to the book. Overall, I just think this one is really cute. I hate the term guilty pleasure, you know, but that's what this book kind of feels like. It's like one of those ones that's got the billionaire vibe, it's got the dating vibe. It just feels like one you can escape to a little bit. It's not too high on the angst or anything like that. It goes enough into emotions to keep you engaged, but it's not overkill. For the most part, it's just one of those feel-good, fun romances. All right, and then the last book that we read in the month of September, which also, I always say we, it was just me doing the reading, you know what I mean? But I feel like because you guys are a part of this journey, you're there with me. The last book that I read in the month of September was also by Emma St. Clair, and this was called Falling for Your Boss. This one was a romance, gave 4.25 out of 5 on Stars, just like the last one, 0 out of 5 on Spice, so no explicit scenes in this one. This one follows Zoe, and she is determined to give her boss, Gavin, her notice. She's been thinking about doing it for a while because she does not want to be one of those cliches that's in love with their boss, but that seems to be what's happening. She shows up, finally determined to do it, and he blindsides her by offering to mentor her for her dream position as a marketing director. In addition to that, he has a situation happen that he ends up needing her help with, and she has to figure out how to balance her feelings for him, the idea of leaving, and the idea of going after her dream job. I really enjoyed this one a lot. I felt like there were situations that come up that were pretty unexpected, so it kept the book really engaging. There's also 2 settings on this one, and they happen to be my 2 favorite settings. One is like a workplace office setting. I love that in a romance. And then the other is a ranch setting. Come on, you guys. So it was like I got the best of both worlds in this book. There was a little bit more back and forth than I normally like. Zoe has kind of like a hot and cold situation going on, which added to the overall drama, but it touched the border of a little ridiculous at one point. But overall, I think that's another entertaining read, especially if you're looking for one without spice. I think Emma St. Clair is definitely one of my favorites when I just want to pick up a book that I know will have an actual plot, but also provides you that romantic feeling where you don't feel like you had to invest too much mental energy into the book, if that makes sense. Well, that officially wraps up what I read in the month of September. No idea what I'm going to be reading in the month of October. I hope that I can get some more books underway because I just love reading. I love reading so much, and I need to figure out times to carve it into my day. It's so funny because when I had newborns and infants, it felt like I was reading like 20 to 30 books a month. And that was probably because most of the time I was just sitting with them while they were like rocking in their mamaroo or their swings. And I feel like the newborn stage was the hardest for me. Toddler stage, I feel like is very, very hard, but I don't know why newborn was where I struggled. So it's just funny that I don't have more time to get the reading done now. I don't know. It's just parenting is a wild ride. But if you guys have read anything that you think I should read in the month of October, please let me know, especially if it's got cozy autumn vibes or even if it's a Christmas book. I love reading Christmas books like year round. So if you have any holiday favorites that I should get on my radar to read in October or November to prepare for the most magical time of year, please let me know. If this was your first video with me, hi, how are you? How's the family? Thank you so much for clicking on the thumbnail and giving me a chance. On this channel, normally I do a lot of grocery hauls and recipe inspiration. So if you need help setting the dinner menu, I've got plenty of that content on my channel. And if you end up enjoying the vibe for either the book videos or those, I would love it if you'd subscribe. It means the absolute world to me. I hope I delivered whatever you needed when you clicked on that thumbnail, and I hope you have a magical day. Bye.